Your journey has been an interesting one up to here. You've questioned so much more than those around you. You've even questioned yourself as to how you could have grown into these thoughts. Am I crazy? When did I begin to think differently? Why do people in general appear so limited in their thought process? Rest assured, you are not alone. The world is slowly waking up to what you already know inside, yet can't quite verbalize. Welcome to the Spiritual Dope Podcast, the show that answers the questions you never even knew to ask, but needed the answers to. Questions about you, this world, the people in it. Most importantly, how do I proceed now moving forward? We don't claim to have all the answers, but we sure do love living in the question. Time for another hit of Spiritual Dope with your host, Brandon Henley. Let's get right into today's episode.
Lagan. Okay.
Yeah.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey there, Spiritual Dope. I'm on here today with Nico Lagan. He helps young men become good men and good men become great. He is currently traveling in the U.S. in an RV with his girlfriend and a rescue dog. He's running multiple businesses from the road and multiple employees. He's also an author, a podcaster, a keynote speaker, and a Muay Thai instructor. Nico, so glad to have you on today, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, brother.
Sure. So I tend to start these off with the whole idea that you and I are vessels for universal energy, right? And the conversation that you and I are having, whoever tunes in, they're not hearing that conversation, right? They're hearing something else that only they're tuning into, and it's a message that's coming from source through you to them. What's that message today?
The message today is to reconnect your mind, body, and spirit. I don't think that we can stress that enough, but unfortunately, I think today we've become a over-specialized society that believes that everything is silos, everything is separated, but we forget that the body allows the mind to run optimally, and that your vessel, as you so put it, I was watching, I don't know if you saw Father Stew, the movie by Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah. It's a great movie. Yep.
Yeah, I was watching it yesterday, and he said something, and I'm going to paraphrase because it's not exactly what he was saying, but what he said is that we are not a physical body living a spiritual experience, but we are a spiritual being living a physical life. And beautifully said. To answer your question, this is what I would say. To remember that that's the case. And as Alan Watts said it, the goal is to understand that life is a joke and to be able to laugh at it and appreciate it for what it is.
For sure. Big Alan Watts fan. Love him, right? If you've heard him and you don't love him, we might not have a good conversation. You're also kind of catching me in a little bit of Sinners into Saints series. So I think this is a great fit, and I think that might be why I went ahead and said let's have Nico on. It looks like a good fit. Let's talk about your journey, right? Like, it's great, right? We're old, both you and I are probably similar in age. To be able to look back at all the stupid shit we did. And to be able to look down at somebody else, be like, well, you can keep doing all the stupid shit you're doing, and that's great. Good luck with that. Or I can give you a couple shortcuts, right? But let's talk about that for real. Both you and I, we did our stupid shit, and who could reach us then?
Nobody. I wasn't listening when I was 14, 15 years old, unfortunately. I don't think that
20s.
Yeah, man, even 20s. Yeah, I went through it when I was younger, though. But wow, even 20s. Yeah, most people are not listening at all. But I don't want to say that it's unfortunate because it's a reality. But we are not people that want to hear the truth. This causes us over the years to just stop listening to anything that is not what we believe to be true. It's, I had a very long podcast yesterday with a guy, and he was asking me what he thought the biggest issue with society was today. And it's a lack of responsibility. We don't want to admit that if we don't feel well, if our life sucks, it's our fault. But what's unfortunate is that if it is indeed our fault, that means that we have the power to make it whatever we want it to be. We are powerful beyond measure as long as we accept the fact that we are responsible for the good and the bad, at least the way we perceive the good and the bad in our lives. It all falls back to us.
Where and like when do you feel you caught that reality for yourself? I knew that to be true for you.
Meditation. I would say through meditation, and this is something I don't speak about a lot just because it just doesn't happen, not because I don't want to, but psychedelics is also something that has opened my mind to things that are not, that you can't see, that you can only feel, and not like your emotions, but it's something that is there. Just like if you want to call fate, right? It's the belief in something that is not tangible, but you know to be there. You feel it to be there. And meditation,
Sure.
Definitely through meditation. And I tend to see psychedelics in a way to expand my meditation practice. Like it busts me through certain plateaus that I get in meditation alone, to show me that there is something further than what I'm able to perceive.
Sure. I mean, everything's amplified, right?
Of course.
And I think that if we look at the whole idea too, that the visible amount of spectrum that we can even see, what we can even sense is just so minimal, right? It's like less than 1%. You know, and some people talk about, you know, are we actually designed that way as humans, for survival mechanisms, right? Like, because if you and I were always tripping, like, you know, what would we get done? You know, be like, all right, I'm just gonna, and you know, who knows?
Would it even matter though?
No, it doesn't. Like that's kind of a challenge too, right? Like
that's exactly what would it matter?
It wouldn't matter.
We all start living in the middle of the woods and grow our own foods and just worry about expanding our minds.
You can go both ways on that, right? Like, you can look at, I think like Hinduism, where, you know, these guys, they go and they spend their lives in like caves and meditate the rest of their life. And they do some amazing things. They can reverse the blood flow and stuff like that. But then people are like, well, what good is that? Right. But it's super powerful. And the place that they get to in their mind, the way that I would look at it would be like their lifelong practice gets you to that place where psychedelics might take you. Yeah.
But, this is why I'm such a fan of Alan Watts and his definition of the Joker, to understand that this is the case, but to choose to live in society. Because I lived in isolation for over the past 3 years. I spent 2.5 years in isolation, where I was in the middle of the woods by myself for the first 1.5 years until my girlfriend came to join me. But there is such power in being able to spend time alone and question yourself and really face the abyss and see what looks back. But is that something I'd want to do for the rest of my life? No. I understand what's there. I know who I am. But as Alan Watts says it so well, I like to play the game. I enjoy doing what we do, understanding that it is a game. We're all going to die. We're all going to go back to what we're made of, however you want to call it. But it is, at the end of the day, it is a game that we're playing, so might as well enjoy it.
Did you, my understanding too, you had, growing up, some drug history. Were psychedelics not a part of that?
Oh yeah. I started,
they were?
I started the LSD mescaline when I was 14 years old, I think. Yeah. It would have been either 14 or 15.
Sure. So would you like to explain kind of the difference between doing it at a young age for like recreational purposes versus right now, right? Like with a developed mind, I would say.
It's, we tend to lack respect towards I don't want to call them drugs, but substances that alter our minds. We don't give them the respect that they deserve, and we do treat them like party drugs. We treat them as something to have fun when, and this is what I did. Like, to answer your question, this is what I was doing from when I was 15 years old, let's call it 15, when I started playing with this, it was to have fun because it's supposed to make you laugh. It's supposed to make you see things that are not necessarily there. But I can tell you that after my third or fourth trip of LSD, I ended up in my mom's basement going like this for like 3 or 4 hours, just like, what the fuck is going on?
There's some rough ones, man. It can be rough. It can be rough. It can be rough.
When you do not have, and I was 3 tabs in, like I had tripled the dose just because I could. And
sure,
you know, it's today I could go through the exact same trip and see it I would see it in a completely different manner, just because I have developed a spiritual practice and I have got to know myself over the years, and I know what I am, what basically I want, and I understand that psychedelics are supposed to teach you something. They're supposed to show you something about yourself, your past, your future, but they're an answer to something. You have to go in there with intentions of wanting to find something. If you go in there with just like, hey, it's Saturday night and I don't feel like being sober, you know, I've known guys that are not the same anymore. Like, they've never recovered from what they saw or what they didn't understand, however you want to see it. Because it will not cause you physical damage, but if you have a crack in your mind, if something is not okay in your mind, it might decide to crack that open to see what's behind that crack. And if you do not have the mind or the understanding or the self-awareness to deal with it, it might impact you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, no, and I think that's an important thing. And I ask you the question just because, you know, I think that there's a huge disparity between doing it when, you know, you're teens, 20s or whatever, and without like a framework, without an intention, without an integration, and all this other stuff. Let's talk a little bit about leading up to kind of your spiritual self, right? I'd love to kind of do this like this today. We'll say, where have you been? Where are you now? Where are you going?
Sure.
All right. So again, sinner into saint. You know, let's talk about like some of the you know, who'd you used to be, Nico? Like, I mean, now you're just dude, like, you know, you got some good stuff to share out. You're in touch with yourself. You're very spiritual. Were you always spiritual? Were you always in touch with yourself? And were you, you know, what was it that caused the awakening and the transition for you?
You know, unlike a lot of people, I did not have a ha-ha moment. It's something that's come through such a long period. I've started questioning myself when I was 15 years old. I'm 41 years old, and I still ask myself questions on a daily basis. So, you know, a young man needs a father to show him what it is to be a man. He needs a guide. He needs somebody to show him what life is all about. And unfortunately, my dad left when I was 14 years old. I saw him a handful of time afterwards, but it left me in a state where I needed to know what a man was, what a good man was, what was I supposed to become down the road. I used to listen to a lot of rap music back then, and not the rap that you hear today, like the real gangster rap at the beginning where people were self-made millionaires, right? They came out of poverty that I can't imagine, and somehow through being tough, they sold drugs, they made money, they had the women, they had the cars, they had everything they wanted, and they couldn't care less. They did not care about what other people said, and most of those guys were fatherless. They did not have fathers around. So I emulated those guys for years, from 14 to 21. That's all I did. I sold drugs to support my addiction habits from both drug and alcohol. And that is, and I wrote rap music for 6 or 7 years. That's all I did until I was losing my apartment. I was in a situation where I was provided how could I put this? I've never talked about this before, but I was given an opportunity where I could dig even further. I was given an opportunity to take my game of selling drugs to here. Like I had
Sure.
been in the game for long enough, and I was really faced with a situation where I could dig even further in, like a lot of my friends did back then, or I could try to figure out what else I could do. Like, okay, let's say that I don't want to do that anymore. What do I do? And, maybe there is a haha moment, but it's not spiritually. It's just what redirected my life. And I was getting evicted from my apartment back then. I was 21 years old, and I got a call from my mother asking me if I was happy with my life. Just that question made me think that I was not. And that crossroad that we always imagine, this is where I was. And I'm like, okay, do I dig in further, or do I simply decide that I'm made for something better than this? And maybe it's time for me to chase after that. And that was 20 years ago, and that never changed. Like, as soon as I thought to myself that I do have the power to do something, I can become whatever I want, I just started adding those little building blocks through the years, through martial art, through going back to school, to starting to develop my mind, to develop my body. And then after doing that for years and being extremely successful in the corporate world, about 10 years ago, I did start adding, I discovered what meditation was. And as a guy that suffered ADHD his whole life, but always knew to do sport. Like, I've been competing in sports my whole life. I've always been competing in something, from basketball to martial art to now I'm just competing with myself on a daily basis. But
Sure.
I've always understood the importance of a healthy body, but the mind was starting to get there. Over the years, the mind is starting to get developed. And then I discovered meditation that connects both the body and the mind together, that allows you to connect to the spirit and to understand that life is very holistic. Everything is connected. Everything's intertwined. We just choose to not see it that way. But when you start seeing the world as the simple entity that it is, things tend to start falling into place. And it's been, I think I've had a meditation practice for the past, I would say 10 years. And now it has evolved through things that, like, I do it every day, but I do multiple times of meditation, self-hypnosis, visualization. I really dig in when it comes to psychedelics. I normally do it about once a year. Just, I feel the calling and I just do it. I microdose. Like, I do my own microdosing, psilocybin pills. So there's a lot of, I put so much emphasis in what I am, we all have instincts, but we tend not to pay attention to them. But throughout the past 20 years, everything that I've done was through instincts, not necessarily logic, but just to, once you start, you know what I'm saying, when you start developing your self-understanding, you start realizing that everything happens for a reason. Everything that happens around you, from the things that happens to the people that you meet, there's a reason for those things to happen. There's no such thing as an accident. There's no such thing as just something that happens with no reason behind it.
Well, sure. So, I mean, look, you've got a worldview. You created and developed a worldview.
Absolutely, you have to.
And everybody's already got one created, right?
Yep.
But what you did was you intentionally cultivated, created, currently maintain it, right? So if I understand though, right, you're like, hey, 21, talking to mom, are you happy? That's a great question, right? Because you're just like, hey, I'm just doing what I'm doing. Money's coming in, kind of things are working out. I got an opportunity to move forward and keep doing this. Are you happy? Hold on a second. Well, I don't know that I am, right? What else can happen in my life? You start taking those steps, getting there. And I love that. I want to hear more about, like, the world around you as a simple entity. Unpack that for us a little bit.
As a simple entity, as in, who do I have around me right now? Is that what you mean?
Broke up a little bit on me. What was that?
I'm not sure I understood your question.
So you talked about the world and like everything around you, kind of just being like the simple entity that's really easy to understand once you're able to, right? Kind of wrap your mind around it or get to that point. But unpack that for somebody that hasn't gotten there yet.
Well, one of the beautiful things, and this whole connection with the universe, Earth, whatever you want to call what surrounds us, really all started with meditation. It all stems from there. It's really the being able to live in the present moment, to understand what I am as me, an individual. How do I feel what I am? And especially how I am at what I like to call a base level. When I feel good, everything's good. When I'm just living the present moment, there's no worries about the future. There's no thinking about the past. I simply am. You start to listen to the world in a way that if I can simply be, that means the other things around me might simply be as well. And how does that relate to me? And those are the little questions that you start asking yourself under meditation. What is the point of this? Why am I here? Because if there's trees, there's a reason for them to be there. If I'm here, there is a reason for me to be here. And I don't believe in accidents. I believe that everything happens for a reason. It is just our lack of understanding that prevents us from seeing the true reason behind something. And meditation allowed me to do that, to simply be aware. Simply by becoming aware of myself, I can start becoming aware of the things that happen around me. By asking myself those existential questions, as in, who am I? Why am I here? What's my purpose? I can start seeing that everybody has a special journey, and if they're crossing my path, it's to me, it's either two reasons. I'm supposed to bring something to their lives, or they're supposed to bring me something. It could be for a matter of a 2-minute conversation, like it could be involved for the next 10 years. We could be walking that path together for the next 10 years. You never know. But meditation has taught me to just ask those simple questions. Instead of just letting things be, I now ask why they are. Like, why are they that way? Why are we talking today, right? What's the whole point of this conversation? And sure. I normally ask myself that about pretty much everybody that I meet, about everything that happens to me. I always reflect on why. Why is such a simple question, but such a complicated one to answer if you don't know how to listen.
Tell me a little bit about your meditation practice. Is it basically kind of going into the silence and asking yourself these questions? They sound very, I think, Zen koan type questions, right? Like,
it's one of those things that I don't have one specific meditation practice. I really go with the flow. Like this is going to sound crazy to most people, but I have discovered through one of my trip of ayahuasca last year taught me a way of meditating where I can get answers to my questions. Whatever question that I have, there's a way that I can get to a point where I will get an answer. It might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, but just out of the blue, I will just be, there we go. Yep. Thank you very much. So it really depends on my state of mind. Like, I meditate after the gym every day to kind of reconnect myself to the outside world. I've been letting all of my aggressivity out. I'm pumped. There's no way I can re-enter the world in that state. I need to recenter myself and then, okay, on to the next thing. Like, what's coming next in my afternoon, for example. If I do self-hypnosis on 2 or 3 times a day where there's specific things that I want to achieve. And I just like good marketers do, I tell my subconscious mind what I want. I repeated it enough time that it believes it and it starts working for me. There's some days that I believe in the healing ourselves. So there's certain types of meditation that I do quite a few days a week where I just get rid of the bad. Everything bad that's within my body, I put it back out there like it doesn't belong to me anymore. I kind of filter it through and just let it seep out through my feet, as weird as this sounds. But and it's not from reading books, it's just things that I've developed over the years. I just listen, and we all have a little voice that talks to us when we're in deep meditation. There's something there, and the day you start listening to it and start asking it questions, there's no limit to what you can learn.
For sure. When a couple things, I know you're a Alan Watts fan. When you bring up this whole idea too of ask this question, you're basically submitting it to the subconscious. It's kind of in my interpretation, this is like a let go and let God type of thing.
Absolutely.
Right? Surrender to that type of thing.
Absolutely.
Are you a Neville Goddard fan?
I don't know that I've read him that much. I got a feeling that he's a great mind, so I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of things that I do that he's talked about way before I tried to do them. And
so I just bring it up because it's just the idea of he talks about this period of everything's got a gestation period, right? So when you submit the seed of a question to your mind, generally it takes a couple days. If you just let it go, it will come back with something like you're talking about. Just made me think of a couple days later, it pops up. You're like, there it is. There's the thing I was looking for.
Yeah, too easy.
It should be effortless.
It is,
right. I mean, you've got the universe as a benevolent universe, right? Working with you in conjunction with you, as you said, as a good marketer does. I'm going to program myself to see what I need to see or pull it through. Right. And if the universe is working with you, it should be effortless, right? It's going to happen. It's on its own timeline. You can't fuck with the timeline. That kind of sucks because you're like, I'd love to just hurry up, but the universe is like, I'll give it to you when you're ready for it.
I've had to wait years on some answers, and they always come back.
What's the biggest one you're waiting on right now?
What I'm doing right now, I had a dream to leave everything behind and to leave Canada about 10 years ago. It's taken me almost 10 years to make it a reality because I did not know how I would do it. I thought I knew, but I didn't. So I kept on looking for ways to make it happen. And, it's been 6 months now. And there's no way I could have imagined where I would be today. Like, it makes no sense to me that I'm sitting here doing what I'm doing when 6 months ago I was still living in Canada doing the corporate job. Like, it makes absolutely zero sense. Looking back, there's no way I could. Yes, it's taken me 10 years, but that 10 years has allowed me to develop so many skills, so many transferable skills that I've learned from my sales career that I was in for 12 years. And now I create content basically for a living. That's what I do day in, day out. I record podcasts I record my own. I record at least 8 a month, but I was supposed to have 3 guests today. Like you're my third one today. And there's some weeks I do 5 or 6 or 7 of them. And yet look at the average person. The biggest fear is to speak in front of people. And I do that multiple times a week. I go in front of people and I give presentations, and it's amazing. It's just amazing when you sit down and realize what you actually possess as per talents and start saying, you know what, let's put them to work for something that I believe in. Instead of doing it for a corporation, for another entity, you just say, okay, what are those skills? How can I use them? And you know what? Do exactly what I did for somebody else, but let's do it with love for me.
Listen, and I think that intent matters.
Oh yeah,
right?
of course.
Like, listen, I'm in sales too, right? So if we go in technology sales, in I think a similar industry, you were in telecommunications, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I mean, my intent is to sell some equipment to send bits and pieces over the internet, right?
Absolutely.
I can do that with love, but like not as much love as I can do this podcast. Not as much love as I can do with like seeing, being with somebody, doing the work that we do and seeing the light come on that person. You can't fucking replace that, man. You can't. There's tell me something better than that.
It's one of those things that you do because you enjoy it, and something that you do because it's your purpose.
Yeah.
My purpose was not to sell telecommunication services. My purpose to help men is my purpose. This is what so it's never going to compare. There's no way you can compare one to the other just because of I don't want to say that it's a vetted interest, but it's mostly one you're supposed to be doing. The other one you just do because it brings you something else.
You're in alignment with your purpose, right? You're in alignment with your values.
Absolutely. 100%.
You're in alignment with your vision. You're in alignment with all these things. And when you reach that point, like you become unstoppable. Like I believe, if I understand correctly, sold the house, burned all the bridges, left it all behind, and you're like, fuck it, here we go.
That's it. I refinanced the house. I took all my money out of everything that I owned, and I just said, fuck this shit. Let's see where this goes. I didn't even have a plan. I just knew that this is what I was supposed to do because this is what I meant to do. The road is not paved, but I'm just walking it knowing that I have no doubt when I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing right now. So there's no doubt that I'm doing the right thing. Do I know what the end result is? No, I don't. It's going to be better than what I thought it would be, but trying it is very fun.
You got to have the experience, right? The experience of walking in your purpose. So I love to hear that that's what you're doing. What's the dog's name?
Lulu. Broken German Shepherd.
Yeah. So you guys are traveling across the country. You're doing your coaching. You just you've just got the book done. You've done this transformation from sinner into saint, right? And the reason I like to kind of have those conversations is because you're at a point now where your baseline is chill, right? Your baseline is who you're where you're supposed to be. Your baseline isn't like, oh, I should be doing what this guy tells me to do, doing what this person. Oh, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. You are in a place where you know who you are, what you want, and you're living that. And somebody else cannot tell you who you are right now, right? And I think that's a big transition from. You understand now how powerful the choices that you make are, right? You pulled yourself out of victimhood, right? You've taken 100% responsibility, and everything that happens now is on you.
Yeah, 100%. It's on me and God, the universe, nature, what they have planned for me.
What's your higher power subscription look like? Is it God? Is it?
I believe. I definitely believe in God. I believe in
Christian God. Is it?
I believe. I would believe in God in a Christian way, but not in a Catholic way. I believe in God in a Gnostic way, where I do not need an interpreter. I don't need somebody to play third party between the relationship that I have with God. I talk to God every day, at least twice a day, and it is a conversation that is two ways, myself to him, him to myself. So I do go to church every now and then, though. It's something that since I've been traveling, I've been reinstating in my life, but non-denominational in a way where I understand the friendship, the community, the relationship that is built through people that share a faith. And to me, it's absolutely beautiful because I might not agree with everything the pastor's saying or the way at least he's interpreting the Bible, for example, but I can understand why he's saying it the way that he is, and the effect that it has on people is a beautiful thing to me. I strongly believe that there is a big disconnect between ourselves and our spirituality. And for most, maybe attending church, maybe attending Buddhist school, like a Buddhist temple, going to a Hindu temple, or whatever religion / spirituality speaks to you, just starting to reintegrate that in your life is one of the steps that's changed me, because meditation comes from Buddhism. At least my type of meditation comes from there. And this is what reconnected myself to myself. And let's not lie to each other. Praying is meditating. I've had pastor admit to me on camera that they knew exactly what it is. There's no difference. Buddhism existed 2,500 years ago, like it was 500 years before Christ. To me, Christ is a Buddhist. And people don't like when I say that, but it is the way I feel. I've read the Bible, I've read a lot of Buddhist texts, and the way what they say is very similar. They say it in a different way to different people with different values, but the message still remains that there is something greater than us all. There is a way to connect through it through love, and treat other people the way you want to be treated. It's not that complicated, really.
It's not that complicated. It's not that complicated. What I'm not super big on the Bible knowledge wise.
Sure.
But what's a passage that's speaking to you really loudly now? Like where you are in your life right now. What's something out of the Bible that's really speaking to you?
It's a verse in Matthew, if I'm not mistaken, but it's about the 40 days and 40 nights that Jesus spent in the wilderness. Because this is something that I've done for 2.5 years, and to this day it still happens. I don't think that in the Bible they speak about it like it lasted a specific amount of time, and after that it changed him. But to me, that part never stops, because your mind is the wilderness. It is not a physical place that you need to go to. So that battle with I don't necessarily believe that there is a devil. There's not somebody with pointy ears, with pointy horns trying to poke you and put you in eternal damnation. I think your eternal damnation is your life. So our hell is right here if you choose to make it.
Yeah, for sure. I agree 100%.
So, it's one of those things. That passage always talks to me, because the whole point is that the devil tempts Jesus to follow him instead of following his Father being God. So instead of and to me, God, you could see God as your instincts. Who's to say that God doesn't talk to you through your instincts? And by following your instincts, following your heart is following God. So you have your duality that we all have, that's represented by the yin and yang in Buddhism, that tells you, that little voice that tells you, you know what, maybe you're full of shit and you're not meant to accomplish anything. This is your devil talking to you. But then you have your real voice that is telling you, bro, what the fuck, man? Don't listen to this guy. What you want is right there, and you can go get it. So this, to me, I like to say that the Bible is a psychological tell. It's a set of instruction that you can go past the stories and read between the lines. The best way we've had for thousands of years to share information was through stories, is by father telling his son, mother telling his daughter, this is a story, and learn. A fable is exactly that. I'm not saying the Bible is a fable, but this is how I like to see it. Read the stories and try to see how it applies to you by reading between the lines, not taking it so literally. Yeah.
No, I'm with you, right? I think that it's I don't know if it's Kabbalah or some other places, right? There's just different levels of understanding, right? And it's not going to be like it's for a while. Like you're going to read those stories and be like, I don't fucking get it. I got nothing in here outside of like that bitch just turned to salt, and I don't get it. Like I don't want to turn to salt. She's a salty bitch, right?
No, it's true.
And the deal is, it's got like other pieces, right? What I do like I'll tell you what I like about religion. I'd love to hear just kind of like, what's your take on it, right? What I do like about religion is that it gives you a kind of a landing pad, right? If you don't have any religious or spiritual background, and you get to your midlife crisis, quote unquote, spiritual awakening, whatever, and you don't have that background, you're going to crash and burn, man. It's going to be a real fucking tough experience. Right?
You see it right now. Look at men 35 to 50, 35 to 45. You see it everywhere. And to me, you're absolutely right. It is a spiritual battle. Your midlife crisis is spiritual in nature. It is really, and And I agree with you for the launching pad analogy, because this to me is what religion is. If you can surround yourself with people that have faith, because look at whatever religion you want, there is a faith component in every single one of them. You have to believe that there is something out there that you will never comprehend fully. There's no way for you to understand it, but you have to have faith that it is there to help you, that it is there, that it cares, and it is there to help you. And it brings, having faith in something greater than us all does allow you to remove the burden, that the understanding that your life is going to end one day, the burden that this is all you have right here, right now. It kind of removes that burden away from you and say, bro, it's going to end at one point. You might as well do what you want to do, what you're meant to do during that time, and stop living by other people's expectations.
That's right.
It's a number one regret of the dying is to not have lived their life the way they wanted, but instead listening to what other people expected of them. And I don't fear a lot in my life, but this is something that I fear. This is something that on a daily basis I will think about. I've never been that guy, and I will never be that guy either.
The one that doesn't live out their dreams?
The one that doesn't do what my heart tells me to do. You asked me earlier kind of what my life looks like right now, that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And I got to tell you, it's a lonely life. Outside of my girlfriend and two of my bros, I don't have people that I can necessarily relate to or that I can count on, because I like to call it your personal legend. When you chase your personal legend, when you're following your personal legend, it's a lonely road, because technically it is selfish. You're doing the thing you were meant to do. So you need to become selfish in order to become selfless, because giving your true self to others is the greatest gift that you can give to the world. But without being selfish, you cannot discover what that is. So,
I'm with you on that too. That's I got a line that I like to use for that. You're the giver and the gift, right?
Yep.
You're both the giver and the gift. You got to give it to yourself
Agreed.
first before you can give it to others.
Absolutely.
And if you can't do that, then you're not serving anybody, right?
I completely agree with you. Absolutely right.
Tell me about your book.
It's funny, but it's all about that. It's all about finding purpose. It's all about, through my 2.5 years of isolation, I kind of went through self-discovery. Like, I put myself in a situation, like in Canada, COVID restrictions were brutal. So as a sales engineer, all of my meetings that were face-to-face got pushed to Zoom, team meetings. Everything was online. I was living in the city back then. Was that?
The worst, man. It was like all like back-to-back meetings, right? Like all day long.
Yeah. I could barely do 4 meetings in a day face-to-face, and that was a good day. And then you could do 5 you could do 4 in your morning. It was absolutely brutal. But, during that time of isolation, it did allow me to connect a lot with what I was, because I took 3 months off of everything when I was out there. This is something, it feels so long ago. But a year and a half ago, I've always wanted to have my motorcycle license. So I took 3 months off. I took a hiatus from work, and I did my motorcycle license. The day after I got my license, I picked up a bike. 7 days after that, I was on the road for 3 weeks by myself with 10 gear strapped to the bike, and I just left. I had an idea where I wanted to go, but I didn't have any plans. I didn't know how long I would stay somewhere, but it allowed me to really spend time. Already I was spending time in isolation. It allowed me to start putting in practice what I was feeling when I was alone. You kind of rewire your brain or your mind when you're alone by confronting who you are, and then you can go back into the world with what you actually are, and start seeing the difference in the way that the interactions with other people, when everything comes from a place of awareness. It's interesting how people tend to notice that. Like my girlfriend laughs at this all the time, but she's always telling me that it looks like I have a sign on my forehead that says, "Come talk to me, I'm interested." So I get people approach me all the time, just get conversation with people, and it's always super deep conversation, the type of conversation you should not have with somebody that you don't know. But yet, once you open that part of you, it seems like people know it. They might not realize it, but they tend to be drawn to you. And this trip, the last 6 months, we've been on the road, and I'm meeting people after people, and my podcasts are all done in person. So I'm always recording with new people. I've recorded with people I met at the gym. I recorded people I met in the street. I recorded with people I met in church. I spoke to a guy that spent 15 years in prison a couple of weeks ago, and I met him in church. He's not the same man anymore. He's completely different now. But, you know, it's the day you allow yourself to be yourself, that you allow yourself to listen, and you finally decide to go after your purpose, which, to answer your question, this is what my book is all about, but it all comes down to connecting with yourself first. Because we all know what our purpose is. We've known since we've been children. We just forgotten, but it's still there. But you need to get back into a state of mind where you can start asking those questions to yourself, and through introspection and meditation, you get to learn or to remember what those are. And knowing your purpose is one thing, but having the balls to go after it is this is what differentiates the average from the great from the average. Because I had to cut out basically everybody of my life over the past 3 years. I literally draw up a list with, give me all the names that are the people that I deal with on a daily basis. Here's a sheet of paper split down the middle. Who brings me down, who elevates me, and everybody has their place. If you are in the bring me down section, I'm sorry, motherfucker, you're gone. I don't deal with I don't deal with that anymore.
That is so like I said, I know like probably like 6 or 7 lines from the Bible, right? But this is what it was like to go through the needle, right? The eye of the needle was that the camel had a bunch of luggage on his back. It had to get on its knees and crawl through. And if it didn't, like you had to get stuff off of the camel in order to pass through, right? This is kind of like you going through
100%
the needle. Yeah, that's cool.
100%. And it's like that for everybody. The day that we start, we're so emotionally attached to what people used to be that we tend to forget, and we do that to ourselves all the time. So many people look at themselves in the mirror, and the reflection that they get is not how they feel. Like there's such a disconnect between who they actually are, because they're like 10 years in the past. They've been grinding, doing whatever it is that they do on a daily basis, that they disconnect from their true self. They allow to have all those peoples around them that are bringing all that negativity around them, because to them it's totally normal. That's how life is. But the day you start, the day I stopped listening to the news this is one of the days. That was 10 years ago, maybe a bit more, and this changes your perspective on everything. You start realizing that it's mostly bullshit. It's just there to make you react, that people are actually pretty good down there. Like, people deep down are good people. Most of the people out there, they're just trying to live a life that makes sense to them, and they're good people. So it's, as soon as you start reconnecting with who you are, because if you know yourself, you know the universe, right? As soon as you know yourself,
let's do this, Nico, real quick, right? Like, there's going to be 2 people, for the most part, listening to the conversation. The people that have not connected with themselves, that don't know what the fuck you're saying. And then there's going to be people that have connected with themselves. They're like, yeah, he's fucking right. I got it. I get it. Talk to me what it looks like to begin to connect with yourself, to understand that you are now connecting with yourself, that you're beginning to open up your pathway, that you're beginning to come into alignment with the truth of who you are. What's that look like?
To me, it all starts with the easiest part is your physical attributes. Is to really, the thing that I see most of the time with, there's no way that you're going to feel good you're going to feel good mentally or even spiritually if you're treating your body like garbage. And although your physical envelope is temporary, it is still what supports your mind, which your mind is your greatest conscious asset. So it always starts from there. Always treat your body with the respect that it deserves, from the way you exercise, the way you eat, but the way that you sleep, what you watch, what you listen to, who you have around you, because who you have around you has a direct impact on how you feel. And then treat your mind like a sponge. Don't stop learning because you're not in school. I'm learning new skills on a daily basis. I read all the time. I research people that were great to understand how they became great. And then through meditation, you can connect them all. But it all starts with, if you've never meditated, don't worry about it. Start by treating your body the way it should be treated. Then once you start taking care of your body, start taking care of your mind like it's a child that you love. Teach it stuff. Show him what the world actually is. Start looking at the world in a way that is not as selfish as you would normally. Because as soon as you start feeling better in your body, you start understanding that everything around you has a reason to be there. You start seeing, as soon as awareness brings up through your mind, through the connection through your body, as soon as you start feeling well, your mind automatically starts feeling better. As soon as your mind starts feeling better, it looks like spirituality to me is just a matter of time before it starts entering. It starts just showing up.
You're doing all the nurturing work. At some point, you have no choice but to blossom.
100%. You just need to plant that seed and water it.
Couple things. 40 days and 40 nights. Again, not a Bible guy, but there's plenty of reference to 40 and 40, right? And there's plenty of reference to like after 40 whatevers. Like there's this change.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to me like that could have a very similar correlation to especially men and at this age bracket, right? That's
100%.
That's that change, right? I don't know if that's your thought or has that ever crossed your mind?
To me, men are driven. A life without purpose is meaningless, and as men, we need purpose. There's 3 purposes in a man's life: a boy to become a man to become a good man, and then a man to become great. The third one is not necessarily going to happen. It is not a necessity, because a lot of people will simply stop at being a good man, and that's great. That is not a bad thing at all, but this is where their journey stops. No problem. If our life would be filled with selfless men that would be providers and protectors, that would take care of the people around them, the world would be in such a great place that greatness would probably not be needed. But we live in a world today that we are not surviving for life. At least here in North America, we're not surviving on a daily basis. And that lack of survival allows us to get to a point in our life where I was 3 years ago to say, you know what, I will separate myself from what people believe to be life and start forging my own, and really start analyzing, why the hell was I put here? Why am I here? And this is what normally happens around 40. When you're, I like to use I like to play golf. So you're on the back nine, right? You're coming back to the beginning, and you're realizing that you don't have that much time left. Because I'm 40 years old. For all I know, I'm going to live to be 45, or I might live to be 110. Who knows?
Sure.
There is an amount of time that we have, and you need to stop treating. We for some reason, we have the conception that we have unlimited amount of time. That it's okay. Do it tomorrow. Do it tomorrow. Do it tomorrow. It's fine.
That's a fun one, right? Like, I mean, do you think that comes from the place of, let's imagine that we're eternal beings, that we're spiritual beings having this physical journey, and we're like, dude, we got all the time, and then we're like, we look down, like, it's all turned to dust, right? That pressure of remaining time. I definitely recall like that hitting me too. Just being, it was a little bit different. It wasn't so much of people talk about like this dark night of the soul, right? Like, this dark. I didn't really go through a dark night of the soul, but what I went through was like, I've done pretty good for myself. I don't know how I got here or did so well. Like, that was pretty much like an unconscious, like effortless. Like, don't get me wrong. I showed up. I went to work. I fucking did whatever I was supposed to do. But I wasn't really trying that hard.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, I was like, what happens if I put my own paddle in the water and start doing this shit with like, just like a little bit of a, like when you go downstream and you paddle just a little bit with the current.
Yep.
Like, it's like double time.
Absolutely. And, you know, the way I was saying it is not in a way where you're facing your own mortality. It's just to realize that if you are to accomplish something, you have a very limited amount of time to do so. So I tend to, you know, I look back at my life and I look at what I've done. I cannot think of one thing I did not do when I should have been doing it or when I wanted to do it. I always tend to do what feels right and not to question it. Just, this is what I feel like doing. Cool, let's do it. Let's figure out how to make it happen. Let's just do it. And I don't doubt it. So I could die tomorrow and there's no regret there because I did live the life that I wanted to live. Whatever the consequences of that is, I lived my life up to now and I will continue to do so.
Too. When you tell your family, hey, guys, this is what I'm doing, what's that reaction like? And you know, I got to imagine like there was, doesn't matter how powerful I think you feel about yourself and what you're going to. I don't know who you told, but like, I'm going to imagine it's your mom or something, right? Like, hey, this is what I'm going to go do. The same mom that called you up and was like, are you happy with your life? And now you're like, yeah. Not only was I not happy at 21, I'm not happy now, and here's what I'm going to go do. What's that look like, and what's that conversation like?
You know, unfortunately, I don't have a good relationship with my mother, nor I do my sister. When you, like I was saying earlier, I tend to be very outspoken about what I think, about what I do, and I don't really care what you think about it. What you think about it is not going to affect the way I think about something. If it's true to me, it is true to me. Respect to you if it's not, but this is not my prerogative, is not to make you feel good about my decisions. And my families are a bunch of victims. So my mom and my sister have a big victim mentality. The world's against them. They're oppressed.
Sure.
So it's, you know, I remember 3 years ago when I started my podcast, and I've recorded about 200 of my own over the years, not counting the one that I was on, that I've been part of. And I remember being very excited about this. I remember telling my mother, and she's like, you know, most people fail doing that. I'm like, okay, that's it. I told her right on the bat, I'm like, okay, you know what? I don't need this shit. I was telling you this because I was excited. If you're going to be negative about it, I will never bring that shit up to you again, and I never have. So it's one of those things that I don't, the day somebody starts showing me negativity like this, I just simply stop talking. It's my family. I have to have somewhat of a relationship with them, but it is very minimal because we're not aligned with what we are. I am 100% good with what I am. And I'm tired of debating what I am and trying to explain it to people that don't understand, and that somehow I make them feel bad about their lives. Because this is something that always happens when you live your life the way you want to live it. People will compare you to what they live, and somehow you turn to be a bad guy because you're living your life. Life is amazing that way, but I stopped caring. Quite frankly, I just stopped caring. Unfortunately.
So, no. I mean, look, that's where you are, right? That's where you are in your space. That's where you are in your relationships. So, as far as I can tell, right, it wasn't much of a concern. You were just like, all right, this is where I am right now. This is what I'm doing. There's really nobody else to have a conversation with, and nobody else to come back to me and be like, what do you think? What do you think you're doing? I got you. All good. So we're at a little point here, right? I always liken this podcasting, right? What you're doing right now is like spiritual speed dating, right? It's like you get on a podcast, somebody's listening in. Listen, you're in marketing, you're in the space. You know what it's like. You basically got about 90 days, right, to kind of work with somebody. Most of the people that tuned into my podcast 90 days ago are fucking ready to move on, and I get it. And
that's
so now they're looking for. It's real, right? Like, so
it's a beautiful thing.
That's all right. And so they're looking for their next spiritual person. Nico, it could be you. We're going to use ChatGPT to generate some speed dating questions, because if you're not using AI right now, I don't even fucking know what to tell you. But so I said to ChatGPT, we are on a spiritual speed dating show. What are 10 questions you should ask to get to know more about me and whether or not I am spiritually aligned? I've got 10 questions. I'm going to let you pick 1 through 10. Which one do you want to pick?
5. Let's go 5.
Number 5. How do you practice mindfulness, and how has it affected your relationships and overall well-being?
Mindfulness is absolutely everything. Through meditation every day, I practice just to be aware. We spoke about this already, so that's an easy answer. Yeah. But it impacts everything. It's absolutely everything. The power of stepping back has changed my life.
Yeah. Would you say like kind of the power of letting go a little bit?
You know, I'm a very, very masculine guy. I have a lot of testosterone in my body, and I'm a very aggressive person by nature. Every day is a battle not to kill someone. Like I've been doing martial arts for 20 years and I've been meditating for 10. There's a reason behind it, because I need to channel all of that energy. So it is a conscious thing that I do every day, that I'm like, stay calm. It's all good. It doesn't matter. Right. It really has no importance. It's a lifelong battle. This is something that I will fight my whole life. It's becoming easier and easier. You think less and less about it, but it is still a conscious decision that I do, that I take every fucking day. Yeah,
listen, and we go back to the awareness part, right? Like, you're 100%. Aware of it. And that's all that 100%. You can be. And
100%.
Like the idea. This is an Alan Watts conversation where he talks about becoming a wooden Buddha. Yeah. Right? Like, you don't become like a wooden Buddha. Like, it doesn't mean you don't have feelings. It doesn't mean that you don't react. It doesn't mean any of that. What it means, like, to be aware, right? Of to be conscious of what is going on, not only outside of you, and more so inside of you. Like, Nico, what you're saying is like, I'm fucking raging. That guy, that motherfucker, he didn't say bless you, right? He didn't say bless you. And I'm going to snap his motherfucker. Hold on a second. All right. That's me.
Dude, what the fuck,
that's all me. Right?
Yeah.
Damn, dude. So let's do this one. I like this question. In what way? In what? Number 7?
Yeah, 7's a good one.
No, I don't like 7. 7. I'm gonna do 8 with you, right? Like, in what? Because I think we covered 7 already. Yeah, okay. In what ways do you express gratitude or practice giving back to others in the world around you?
Gratitude is interesting. I practice Grateful Thursdays. So for the past few years, every Thursday, I release a video about being grateful for something. I always encourage my followers to do the same, but it's something I've been doing for years. But being grateful, quite frankly, I do it every day. I do it out loud on Thursdays, but through talking to God, I'm grateful for everything and everybody that's in my life. I pray for my mother and my sister. They don't know this, but I pray for my sister and my mother every day. Although I talk to them once a year, maybe, I still pray to them twice a day, every day. I am very grateful for the people that are around me. I'm very grateful for what's happening in my life. And I am the type of guy that if I meet somebody that I can help, I would help them. Like, my girlfriend knows that anytime I leave the RV, I could potentially come back with a dog that needed help, and we have a new pet. So this is how... You know, over Christmas, I met a guy at the gym that just moved down. We were in Austin, Texas, and he had just moved down there. We were at the gym on the 25th. Was it the 24th? 24th or 25th, and he just says bye. And I look at my girlfriend. I'm like, hold on, I need to talk to this guy. I'll be back. And she's like, oh, tabarnak. She's like, oh, motherfucker. She knows that look, right? So I go back, and I'm just, hey, bro, what are you doing today? Like, do you have, because I'm pretty sure you're new in town. We don't have much to offer. We're in an RV park, but bro, if you don't want to be spending your time alone, fucking come join us, and we'll have food. We'll have a drink. We'll do something. Whatever it is, we'll do something. But turns out the guy lived out of his car. So he stayed with us for a little while. So this is how I help. I just listen to my heart. My heart tells me to do something. I make that face that my girlfriend's very aware and recognizes, and she knows it's just trouble that's probably coming our way. But I try to help no matter what. I'm always going to be trying to help people that there's something I can do to help them.
Awesome. 2 books, man, that have totally shifted your life. Think and Grow Rich and The Bible Don't Count.
Motherfucker. Because Think and Grow Rich is like magical right there. I would say that my 2 books that have changed my life is Listen, which is a book by, I have it somewhere. It's written, I can't remember his name. It's written by a psychiatrist that trains FBI negotiators. So the guys that negotiate hostage takers. It has given me the tools that I am capable of using today on how to create rapport with people extremely easily. So it's psychology. I'm a big fan of NLP. So it interconnects real life experience with a bit of NLP with beautiful tricks that you can use on a day-to-day basis. And for years, I had a reminder in my phone every 10 minutes or 15 minutes before every meeting I had a specific things that I was working on. So let's say today I'm working on making people laugh during a very serious meeting. If I can make you laugh, I know that we have rapport. I know you're paying attention. And at this point, I got you. I know that I'll sign you. So I would always move my things prior to 10, 15 minutes to my meeting. I've done that for years. And now those skills are just normal. And the second is Winning book. It's by Tim S. Grover. He talks about Tim S. Grover is the first real outside of the NBA coach that coached basketball players, as in an outside coach of the team coach. And his first real professional client was Michael Jordan at his peak. It's absolutely fucking crazy that he was able to sign a guy like that. But he's worked with Michael Jordan. He's worked with Kobe Bryant, which are arguably the 2 best basketball players to ever play the game. But he played with Dwayne Wade. He's playing with Hakeem Olajuwon. He's worked with some of the best basketball players at their prime. And it's all about the mindset of great guys. I don't believe in balance. I'm not a balanced individual. And that book did not teach me anything, but it made me understand that I was not alone. And reading his book, I was like, oh, motherfucker, finally somebody's talking in ways that I can fucking understand.
That's great. Look, I mean, you sound relentless. You're deeply into what you're doing.
So you've read the first book then? If you're saying relentless,
read the first book,
yeah, because that's the second one's way better than the first one.
Yeah. Where should people go to find out more about you, man?
You can find me on YouTube at Nico Lagan. You can check my website at nicolagan.com, but you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok at Real Nico Lagan.
Who should be reaching out to
you? Men that wants to be better. Men that don't have mentors in their life, men that don't have role models to not necessarily emulate, but to look up to.
Got it. Well, Nico, thanks so much.
Thanks a lot for your time, man.
Really hope you enjoyed this episode of the Spiritual Dope Podcast. Stay connected with us directly through spiritualdope.co. You can also join the discussion on Facebook, Spiritual Dope, and Instagram at spiritual_dope. If you would like to speak with us, send us an email through brandon@spiritualdope.co. And as always, thank you for cultivating your mindset and creating a better reality. This concludes the most thought-provoking part of your day. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay fully up to date. Until next time, be kind to yourself and trust your intuition.